Hey y'all, so this is going to be part two of the unpacking the invisible knapsack that Peggy McIntosh swears we all have. From her 1988 expose of projection about how every single white person living in America is as entitled as she was and is, and how every single person of color lives this hopeless existence where they don't have any agency or any sort of thing to look up to or to aspire to, and therefore they need a white savior like her to come along. So just getting right back into it. 25. If a traffic cop pulls me over, or if the IRS audits my tax return, I can be sure I haven't been singled out because of my race. You can't be sure you have or haven't. The cop isn't telling you, I pulled you over for being black. That's just the excuse people have made that gave birth to the didn't do nothing meme. Studies have shown blacks far more likely to break traffic laws like speeding and swerving, etc. Because I'm black is an accusation, not a confirmation. White people can just as easily make that guess too, especially if it's a non-white cop. You just wouldn't take them seriously. 26. I can easily buy posters, postcards, pictures, books, greeting cards, dolls, toys, and children's magazines featuring people of my race. Wow, great point. Got 'em. Finally, one I can't disagree with. There are no black toys or posters or cards that exist by the millions upon millions and can be readily purchased literally all over the entire nation. Nope, doesn't exist. St. Peggy has decreed. 27. I can go home from most meetings of organizations I belong to feeling somewhat tied in, rather than isolated, out of place, outnumbered, unheard, held at a distance, or feared. I don't even know what she's saying here, if I'm honest. Still insisting that non-whites don't own businesses, still insisting that non-white people cannot make up the majority of a business environment. I guess the Italian mafia owns those hundreds of businesses in all of the Chinatowns and other Asian parts of the city. The Chinamen are just a front, and black people will. Peggy won't let them own a thing at all, even their own voice. They can be president, just can't be a manager in Peggy's mind. But we're the privileged ones here, not her. It's not her projecting how she really feels about these people. It's that we're all just really that bigoted. 28. I can be pretty sure that an argument with a colleague of another race is more likely to jeopardize her chances for advancement than to jeopardize mine. This might be the most boomer of all boomer arguments I've ever read. Grand boomer. Peggy stuck back in 1938 and nothing will change that. No amount of living in this world and real world experience and seeing the world change in front of her eyes has ever shown into the tinted glass of her bubble, because she's a privileged elitist and has been since birth. And why would she want to change though? Doted on, wealthy, everything she's ever wanted and more, ritzy finish in school, feminist career of teaching women's studies, and still ended up somehow hating men and all white people. No, Peggy projects everything still the same because for her, nothing's ever had to change. She's still the same old spoiled, rich, mean girl looking down on everyone. 29. I can be pretty sure that if I argue for the promotion of a person of another race or a program centering on race, this is not likely to cost me heavily within my present sitting, even if my colleagues disagree with me. Refer to the last one. You'd think she was entirely unaware that more whites than blacks fought for civil rights, and it was white people who signed those changes into law. But no, in her mind, everyone's still so racist that they'll hire blacks, apparently, just not listen to them or promote them. Peggy came over with the Mayflower and hasn't updated her firmware yet. What am I even doing with my life? 30. If I declare there is a racial issue at hand or there isn't a racial issue at hand, my race will lend me more credibility for either position than a person of color will have. Pure fiction. Has she seriously been in a coma? That might explain a lot of this. The world in which we live today, if there's a racial issue at hand, it's actually non-whites who are listened to. White people are told that they are not allowed to speak on racism or define racism unless they are like a Peggy McIntosh and saying that all white people have some splaining to do. Ask the Mizzou students who literally lied their little butts off about racial discrimination so that they could get a white man fired and replaced with diversity. It was number two. It was the number two demand on their big list of demands. Seriously. This stuff was likely true in 1942 in all white neighborhoods like Peggy's that were discriminatory. That's the childhood on which she's drawing back. But it wasn't true at all in 1988. as far as America in the aggregate when she wrote the essay, and it objectively works the other way around in the modern 2000s while she's still out there defending her work to this day. 31. I can choose to ignore developments in minority writing and minority activist programs, I can't say that word for some reason, or disparage them, or learn from them. But in any case, I can find ways to be more or less protected from negative consequences of any of those choices. Here we go again. Again with the consequences for not making non-whites a mandatory part of your life, white man. Oh, you work 50 hours a week, have 2 mortgages, utilities, insurance costs, debt to pay, hungry mouths to feed, and then your downtime just want to watch some football and listen to Waylon Jennings? Bigot! How dare you not keep up with the latest writings from minority cultures? This is the only way to be enriched, white person. Forget your stupid white family, you privileged racist. Go watch the new Medea in 3D or suffer waterboarding until you admit black men have the biggest. 32. My culture gives me little fear about ignoring the perspectives and powers of people of other races. This is the same damn thing as before. Why split it up? I don't know. Maybe this is the remix. 33. I am not made acutely aware that my shape, bearing, or body odor will be taken as a reflection on my race. Yep. Only non-whites have racial stereotypes about that. 34. I can worry about racism without being seen as self-interested or self-seeking. Not true. Only your little tiny Marxist progressive SJW cult think that you're not cringe. Y'all have little circle jerks and congratulate each other, while the whole and rest of the entire outside world thinks that you're very cringy people. Very haughty, very elitist, very negative thinking and feeling toward minority people, especially black people, when you deign to speak for them and not let them have their own voice. Everyone else sees you as self-serving, vainglorious anti-whites and anti-men especially, who demand to be the white saviors of all non-whites. Look at this pie chart to accurately explain to you the divide among people who think you're just self-serving and then where you fall. 35. I can take a job with an affirmative action employer without having my coworkers on the job suspect that I got it because of my race. Well, you got your job by affirmative action 100% guaranteed for sure. There's no other possible way that someone with an English degree ever becomes a research scientist without affirmative action. Or some type of cronyism, nepotism, something that your privilege did give you, yet you attribute that to all white people. Rich white girl who's a Frankfurt Marxist feminist, nothing to show for herself save opinions on Emily Dickinson's poems. Oh yeah, freaking Neil deGrasse Tyson over here. Because you might not think that's how it be, but it do. And if you want to get rid of people thinking that, get rid of affirmative action and make non-whites and women earn their keep like white males have had to, then speak up. 36. If my day, week, or year is going badly, I need not ask of each negative episode or situation whether it had racial overtones. When it hasn't been your day, your week, your month, or... Nobody needs to ask this. The only reason they ask this is because you're telling them that's exactly what it is. They showed up late. They were moody. They were throwing things. They were fired. But because St. Peggy tells them they're perfect and didn't do nothing, it's just that Whitey's horrible. They feel entitled to never assimilate into any sort of normative culture because it's Whitey as the one keeping them from doing that. And then they blame whites for their not fitting in with the help of people with white saviors complexes who are feeding them this gibberish. 37. I can be pretty sure of finding people who would be willing to talk with me and advise me about my next steps professionally. So can everyone. Why did you use your contextual frame of reference from the 1940s to write this in 1988? You could have just looked around. St. Peggy. I'm not sure what it is about the mind of a leftist, but they believe whatever happens to be most convenient for what they already believe. They want to circularly support their own presuppositions and own preconceived notions and biases while projecting out onto us that it's us who hold them. We're just regular people. We don't actively discriminate against anybody, and most of us do not benefit from all of these things about which you're speaking of. Even in 1998, we did not. I just don't know what it is. They believe just whatever helps them keep believing what they're believing, and they will not be moved. We shall not be moved. Something interesting about that clip, which is why I played it, it's a 1963 March on DC where the Freedom Singers sang "We Shall Not Be Moved," demanding equal rights. Before the days of demanding special rights, but I digress. Look at that audience. The overwhelming majority of people at that march are white people supporting black people. The leftist never views reality as it might ruin their convenient, preconceived, biased opinion. 38. I can think over many options, social, political, imaginative, or professional, without asking whether a person of my race would be accepted or allowed to do what I want to do. She's on number 38 here. At any point did she ponder and think, wow, I'm 54 years old now, writing an essay about race in 1988. Maybe I should stop looking to the 1940s in a rich all-white neighborhood to draw my conclusions about the world. No, of course not. She's that important. She's the savior of the coloreds, my friends. While 2020 has come a long way since 1988, we still had blacks all over, already on the Supreme Court, governors. The Congressional Black Caucus had existed 17 years before Peggy wrote this essay. We even had black astronauts by that point. At the time of writing her essay, it was no longer applicable, much less in current year format when leftists recite it verbatim in our faces like it holds water. 39. I can be late to a meeting without having the lateness reflect on my race. As whites, one thing we're told, above all others, besides that we're evil and thus need to go extinct, is that we need to listen to black people. We need to listen what they say and believe their lived experiences. Okay, well, it's black people who tell us that they're late all the time. We're just being good allies by agreeing with them. They want to create their own stereotypes, so we play along with it. 40. I can choose public accommodation without fearing that people of my race cannot get in or will be mistreated in the places I have chosen. Apparently, the only thing that sticks out in her mind about her whole lived life experiences in totality is that southern states used to have Jim Crow laws. The Fair Housing Act has been around since 1968, making it illegal to discriminate based on race. Now, sure, there are still people who discriminate, maybe a lot of them, but they're breaking the law by doing so. When there is evidence of racism when a claim is filed, they are punished. How can this be a privilege if exercising it means that you're breaking a law? You can't be privileged by something that you're not allowed to do and will be punished for doing it. It's not a privilege. That's just people acting with their free will and doing something that's against the law, like any other thing. Would you call a murderer who's arrested and put on death row say that he was privileged? No, he broke the law and has been punished for it. I guess English class teaches a bit differently than other classes. 41. I can be sure that if I need legal or medical help, my race will not work against me. Legal first. If you're speaking about quality of lawyers, this is yet again another instance where you're projecting your all-white upper-class life out onto all-white people, as if we lived your same life. Poor folks from around where I live, and there are tens of millions of them, have to take to public defenders because they can't afford pay lawyers, nor family physicians. Which brings us to the second part of her nonsense projections. We're in the ER only when we absolutely have to go, like every other poor person without medical insurance. Not all white people grew up rich and got to go to finishing school, St. Peggy. You're not our deity. We were not molded in your image. 42. I can arrange my activities so that I will never have to experience feelings of rejection owing to my race. I was hoping I wouldn't have to use this low-level boomer tier meme more than once, but apparently she gives privileged examples like Sarah Silverman tells jokes. She gets halfway through the set and then just replays them from the beginning. Do we need to refer back to the literal thousands of neighborhoods blacks have where they're the majority? And Latinos? The district that elected Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez in a New York right by where Peggy used to live that was all white is now majority Latino. Yes, St. Peggy. Everyone can do this. 43. If I have low credibility as a leader, I can be sure that my race is not the problem. Can you? Let's refer back to Tim Wolfe, who was considered a white man and therefore unfit to be a president of a university that had a black presence. Again, I might forgive this in 1988 as I was a little kid and don't remember much, but she's still preaching this stuff today at TED Talks and universities and to up-and-coming leftists. limping up on stage like the Crypt Keeper and refusing to amend her essay and instead doubling down on its validity in today's world means that she is fair game. So seriously.
Shut the fuck up.
44. I can easily find academic courses and institutions which give attention only to people of my race. 45. I can expect figurative language and imagery in all of the arts to testify to experiences of my race. 46. I can choose blemish covers or bandages in flesh color and have them more or less match my skin. Yeah, that's it with this nonsense. I mean, this woman is probably the most responsible for the social destruction and decay of America. Because she is a woman and her ideas were promoted not for their merit but for social justice reasons, this thing is taught in the same way preachers teach the holy word of the deity in which they believe through canon, the Holy Bible.